Hey guys, this is Dr. Morgan here. For this lesson, we'll give Professor Feeney a break. This week we'll start off with a little fun topic. What are the most successful or most best-selling candies in the world? And the answer is M&Ms. M&Ms actually is the best-selling candy on the planet. It's $673 million. It's been around since the 1940s. They added the characters that we all know, the little talking M&Ms, in the 1950s, and has been a successful brand, a market leader ever since. Other successful candy brands, you've got Reese's, which originally started off as its own company and then was bought by the Hershey Company in 1963. It now has an annual revenue stream of $516 million. Speaking of Hershey, Hershey is another major candy branding like we talked a little bit about in last unit and will again in our next unit. Branding being a very important part of the marketing process, the IMC process. Hershey's chocolate bars get about $475 million a year. This is our oldest one in the country. And then you got Snickers, which is actually named after a family horse, oddly enough, that comes in with $441 million a year. Fun fact about Snickers, each candy bar has precisely 16 peanuts. Next most successful brand is actually Orbit gum. So all are chocolate except for Orbit, and that's $381 million a year. Why are we talking about candy and gum and all this kind of stuff? As you go from, as we talk more about branding and IMC and marketing and promotions, you'll understand the importance of market differentiation and developing a brand that is its own unique thing and connects with an audience, and that drives sales. How do we determine, how are all these brands determined? How do we determine that the Snickers bar needs 16 peanuts, or how do we come up with, the success of M&Ms, the branding of the M on there, or the M&M characters that we see? All of that, we make those decisions based on market research. And that's what our unit is about right now, is market research. So in terms of what is market research, or why would we do it, it's the process of defining, a problem or an opportunity, and then figuring out what we can do with that. So, for example, you might have a supervisor that says that, hey, we need to do a survey of our customers. Well, what type of survey? Oh, it really doesn't matter. We just need to do a survey of our customers. Well, that doesn't give you a whole lot of direction. If we're going to do market research, if we're going to get in touch with our audience and find out what they want or need and what their thoughts are, so that can inform our product decisions or our marketing decisions, etc., we really want to be targeted about that. So we want to go through a few different steps of this process with you today. So begins with, what is the problem or opportunity? What are we actually trying to find out? All right. And then from there, you want to develop a plan. How are we going to find out what it is that we wanted to know? That sounds simple, but people get this out of order all the time. We're not just doing research, surveys or focus groups. We'll talk about a few different types of research in just a minute. We're not doing those just for the sake of doing them. And if we are, they're going to come out all muddled and weird. And we're not going to be able to do anything with that data. So the first step of the process is, of course, what do we want to know? And then you need to develop a plan for how are we going to learn that. Next step of that plan would then be to go out and collect that information, decide how you're going to do that, what type of survey techniques or information gathering tools you're going to use so that it makes sense to you and your customers. Give you a little example of that. So here is this is from Iowa Dental, a private company in Iowa. And they were trying to get some data from their customers on what they were doing right and what they were doing wrong and how they could make better decisions in the future. So if you look at the top question, what is the most important to your practice regarding a merchandise supplier? So that Iowa Dental is the merchandise supplier. And they asked people to rank the options that they'd given them from 1 being the lowest to or being the highest, and 10, 11 being the lowest. So number 1, the most important thing for this person in regard to their medical practice was the overall company reputation for quality and customer service. The bottom ranking thing was electronic ordering software and web ordering. Now, if we know that, now we know that our reputation for quality and our customer service are really what people care about, so let's focus on that. Let's focus on improving that. Let's not let customer service slip. Let's not let quality slip. People don't really care that much about electronic ordering software or web ordering, so our customers are more interested in the personal touch than having a really great online interface. For a different company, that might be reversed. And it would help us in our business to know that. So that's what the data is for. Look at the second one down there. What does Iowa Dental do best that really meets your needs? Well, what the customer said is that it's quick to repair equipment when necessary. So Iowa Dental is there when I need them. And they're really fast and they do a good job. The bottom ranking thing down there at the bottom, number 9, offers supply ordering software. So again, for our business, if we were Iowa Dental, we don't really need to worry about the supply ordering software or working on online sales. What people really want is customer service, and they want us to do a good job, repair their equipment quick. We're there when they have problems, right? So this is a pretty good survey because it gives us the ability to kind of make those data-driven decisions about how we then run our company or how we market our company. We can use, if we want to start an ad campaign, playing up our software is not going to be a very effective message to connect with our customers. But playing up our customer service or trying to make them feel like we're family or trying to make them feel like we're, a human face to their needs and that we'll meet their needs, maybe playing up the idea that we will be there fast when you're in a fix, and we'll fix whatever the problem is. That would be an effective marketing or messaging strategy. And we would learn that by doing market research, just like you see here. Now, here's the problem with this. This one is filled out as ranked 1 through 11 and 1 through 9. But you may end up in a situation where, what if you sent all these surveys out and people responded with something like this? Well, it does kind of help us a little bit, but it doesn't tell us everything we need to know because they didn't rank them all. This is called survey fatigue, or ranking fatigue, when a customer only wants to rank what's important to them rather than filling out the whole survey. So this is not surprising because a survey can be difficult to rank, and it really requires some thought all the way down the line. So the more options you give people like this, the lower response rate you may end up getting. Or you may end up with a survey that comes back to you like this, where you asked people to rank the things in order of importance, but what you get back are people that just filled it out with X's. Well, how do we rank that? Well, so that data ends up being a little useless. So you have to give clear instructions. You have to make sure that people are doing exactly what you want them to do, and keeping things simple is really going to help with that process. So that's the collecting information phase of market research. And so then the next thing after we'd gather all that data would be to analyze that information, look for trends, look for things we maybe did or didn't know, that confirmed things we did know or maybe offered some things we didn't know, and crunch those numbers. Usually might use a data analysis for that. But it's important to look for what things mean and for patterns of behavior. And then, of course, the final step of that process would be to then use that information to make those decisions about our marketing and branding for our company or for our brand. All right. So going back through these and getting a little bit more in depth. So step one, problem definition. What is your objective? So it's finding out, what you really want to know. And so marketing is all about figuring out what a customer wants or needs and then trying to deliver it to them. That's our whole ball game. Every bit of these lessons, the 4 Ps, all of our marketing strategies, our SWOT analysis, everything is all about trying to figure out what our customer, define our customer, figure out what they need or want, and then get it to them. That's a successful brand. That's a successful company. And so what is our objective for this particular research? And then is it measurable? So if my objective is, to find out, I want to find out, how many ninth graders are completing the 12th grade. Well, that's something that is measurable. But if I want to know, how many people, how many of those graduating high school are planning to go into certain careers, or why, then that gets a little bit, there's multi-steps to that, it gets a little bit trickier. The why is not necessarily as measurable as the cold hard facts. So you want to ask yourself as you're working on this, is it a measurable thing I'm wanting to know, or is it more of an opinion or perspective type thing that I'm wanting to know? And then the next thing you want to do is, are you willing to take action? How much time and money do you have in terms of what you're going to be able to do with this data, or what you're going to be able to do in terms of a survey or developing a plan, etc. And so the trick here, as we're trying to move into step 2 and develop a plan for our market research, is stick to what you really need to know. You want to steer away from demographic questions unless they're pertinent to your end result, because the longer the survey or the longer the thing you're asking your customers to do, the less likely they are to respond or fill it out completely. All right. So as you're developing a plan, you want to stick to what you know, keep it as simple as possible, be direct in what you're trying to achieve. And sometimes you have to form a hypothesis. You have to go in with, an idea of what you're going to find. And then your survey data or your experiment or whatever type of market research you're doing will then either prove or disprove that hypothesis. So like if I ask you guys whether you'd rather have really lengthy lectures and a lot of readings in this class, or would you rather just get through everything as quickly as possible, I can take a pretty educated guess as to what you guys are going to prefer. And then I could, if I was trying to do some survey data, then I would kind of build it around that guess. And then the next thing you want to do is make sure you can reach the audience. If I wanted to find out the percentage of high school students that are thinking of going to Ole Miss after spending their summer here taking classes, then how am I going to get that data? Well, I would have to go get multiple organizations involved. I'd have to talk to the Office of Outreach. I'd have to maybe contact a variety of different high schools across the state, across the South. Not to say it can't be done, but the audience that I'm trying to find is not all in one place. They're spread out, and so that may be difficult. I just need to keep that in mind when I'm trying to develop my plan, right? And we simplify things in developing a plan by using probability sampling. So what that means is that we don't survey. If we're going to do a survey, we can't really ask every single person, every single customer. We want a representative sample. But probability sampling means that everyone in your target market has an equal opportunity to be asked that question. So, for example, I might ask every 5th person or 10th person on my list randomly, not based on any other demographic or anything like that. And that would, if I ask them randomly, every 5th person or every 10th person across hundreds or thousands of people that customers that I had, then I would get a representative sample of a much larger group. Now, probability sampling like this is how national research firms come out with things like presidential approval ratings, or how we feel about certain candidates without having to ask, all 300 million people that live in this country. The limitations of that, or things that we need to be aware of as we're developing a plan, is how are we going to collect that data, and is our sampling really representative of our target audience? So taking the presidential election as an example, if I'm trying to get who are you going to vote for representative sample, and I call every 10th person and ask them, who are you going to vote for, which of these issues are key, based on right now, taking the temperature, who's your presidential candidate, go. Well, that's a really good survey until you consider that the numbers, unless your database is based solely on landlines and it's not calling any cell phone numbers. Well, people who have landlines are only one subset of the whole country, and the people who are likely to answer the phone and who are likely to talk to a surveyor instead of just hanging up, those are going to skew in one direction or the other. So your probability sampling is going to be off if you don't account for any of that, if you don't kind of adjust your expectations and your hypothesis based on those variables. And so that's where you get into collecting info, the part of the plan where you're actually trying to gather data. The way you want to start any market research project, I can't stress this enough, the place you want to start is secondary data. Now, what do we mean by secondary data? Secondary data is data that already exists, that somebody else has done, without us having to put any resources, time, or energy into creating new data or finding out new information about our customers. So, for example, if I wanted to know, how many students, a percentage of students across the United States who have part-time jobs, yes, I could develop my own survey, my own instruments, and I could go out and do my own research and gather data for that. But that's a huge project, quite time intensive, quite labor intensive, probably quite expensive. When if I would look up, I guarantee you that somebody has already done research on that topic. And so if I can find some other person's research or some other institute's research and then evaluate it for effectiveness and accuracy and all that kind of stuff, how old it is, etc., that's going to save me a lot of time and money. That jumps me from starting point A way forward to starting point B. And so the first thing you want to do, anytime you've got a research project or anytime you've got a research topic, if you're a company that wants to know blank, Google it. Get on some high quality research sites and try or purchase some market data, any of that kind of stuff. Anybody that has already done research, you want to start there. That's working around the edges and trying to get yourself to fully understand what's going on. After you've gathered all your secondary data and you know everything that already exists on the topic or question that you're trying to research, that's when you would move into primary data. And primary data is research you do yourself. All right. There's several different types of primary data. So one would be observational data, watching what people do in a certain situation or particular parameters. And so reality TV is an example of that. Real world where people stop being nice and start being real. We're just watching what's going to go on when we put these people in these particular situations, or Survivor. We want to see what happens when you put these people on this island and put them through all these contests and make them, form alliances and vote one off or the other. That we're observers and we're just seeing what's going to happen. The other type would be questionnaire data. So we're actually asking questions, interacting with our subjects, asking people to do things or asking questions that are people their opinions on things. And so questionnaire data is going to give us observational data is us on the outside observing people doing whatever they're going to do without our interference. Questionnaire data, we interact with those people. And so how we develop our survey or the characteristics, the type of questions we ask, is going to affect their answers. So we become a variable in that data. All right. Now each survey type, we're going to go through a few different surveys here, has its advantages and disadvantages, and I've included a handout in this unit lesson that you can download and refer to. But let's just go through a few different types of survey. You know, if you wanted to ask questions to customers, to some of your customers, or you wanted to ask questions to the general public to find out what they want so that they might become your customers. There's several different ways that you could interact with your audience or with your intended subjects to try to gather that data. The first one would be, you know, like I could go stand at the mall and ask every fifth person that walked by 3 or 4 questions. That would give me a pretty good representative sample of, you know, the general society, or at least people that are shopping, if I was some kind of store. But there's several different variables that could affect those results. You know, the fifth person may not make eye contact with me, you know, or they might see me and turn around and go the other way. That happens a lot. Anyway, or they might be in a hurry and they might have legitimate answers to my survey questions, but they don't really want to do it right now, and or they quickly run through it and they're not really thinking about their answers. So there's a lot of human variables to that in-person kind of random grabbing of people in a public place that kind of limit your survey results. So to eliminate those variables, maybe we could just print the survey out and mail it to people, you know, or pass it out in some sort of situation. So a written survey or a mail survey, you've probably seen something similar to these. You know, we're interested in your opinion about blank. You know, how familiar are you with this program? And it goes on, and there's several other questions. So most people are familiar about these. The good thing about this is that flexibility is very low. There's not a lot of external factors. And that there's really no way that the survey person, you know, like you would in a mall, can influence the results. So this is really the least likely to be influenced by the surveyor type of survey. But the problem with this, or the limitations of this, is, you know, if you send this out to somebody and they don't really understand what you're asking, you can't work with them or clarify, or they don't know how to fill something out, or they're kind of on the fence. You can't walk them through or help them understand the question. And so this needs to be crystal clear. Otherwise, it skews your data, and it might make you make some bad business decisions. This would be an example of doing more of not an in-person interview, but a phone interview to try to gather, phone survey, not an interview, survey, to try to gather information. This is a really old picture, as you can see, these computers. But anyway, this is a typical call center. You know, phone survey, telephone survey, the benefit is it's the fastest way out of all of these to get your information. People are going to answer a series of questions. They're going to answer them fast, and then they're going to hang up, and you're going to call somebody else, and you're going to get a whole new data set of information from them. And so you can, as you see, you can kind of mass produce this, and you can gather a lot of data really, really fast. It also kind of avoids the issue of people not understanding the question, like on a printed survey or a mailed out survey, because the person on the other end of the phone can kind of help them, walk them through the questions, very flexible in the way the questions are asked, helping them understand. But that can also be a problem because it can lead to some degree of interviewer interference. Or, you know, I could sway your opinions in some way if I had a particular stance on that issue, or was trying to get you to lean a certain way about a product or a brand or something like that. There can also be sort of non-intentional bias with this. If the person on the other end of the phone, the person that calls you and is giving you the survey, has a heavy accent, you know, a heavy Southern accent or a heavy foreign accent, then that can make people answer differently, or make them more likely or less likely, usually, to engage with that surveyor, and so that can skew your results as well. So there's some limitations to that too. The last one I want to kind of talk about is a focus group. So the focus group is really just a small group of people together, possibly sitting around a table, and they discuss a certain topic with a moderator. Sometimes we, will maybe even pay focus group people to come and pay them for their time if they're going to spend a lot of time going through our product with us, or we might feed them or something about that. But it's like gathering a random sampling of the people that we're trying to survey and really sitting down and spending some time talking with them. This offers a lot of flexibility because I can kind of dig into their branding decisions, or why they choose this product, or when they say that they really like this feature, what do you really mean? And it can help us get below the surface level of some of that data and really get some real insight into the people that we're trying to find out what they think or feel. So the flexibility is a really good trait of this, but again, influence is also a negative trait of this. If the moderator doesn't look professional, or has some other traits or things that don't make people comfortable, or if they try to shift the conversation in a way that confirms what they already think, then it can really skew your data. So those are just some of the different types of surveys that you may use in your market research, and they all have their place. So it really depends, again, going back to what you really want to know. And so you can really fall a lot of this into two different categories as we're trying to figure out how we structure our how we're going to collect our info. The first way of the first of the two is, are you trying to find out qualitative data? Now, when we talk about qualitative data, we're talking about why people feel a certain way. This is usually narrative or descriptive or emotional, how you feel about things. And so a focus group is a good example of usually a very qualitative data. If I want to sit in a room with people for half a day or an hour or whatever, and really get to the bottom of why they feel like this candidate is for them, or why they really care about this issue or this feature on this product, etc. I'm going to get some really qualitative or anecdotal information, which is really good, and there's some really great insights, but that can sometimes be difficult to tabulate. How do I tabulate how people feel about this product when all I have are words, all I have are emotions? That doesn't fit neatly into a box. When we're doing qualitative interviewing or qualitative data collection, we want to focus more on open-ended questions. So an example of that would be, if I just ask you to respond and say what you liked best about this class, I'm going to get 80 or 90 different answers from you guys, and then I would have to categorize those or some kind of way. They're all going to be, I can't compare them to each other in any formal, competitive way. They're all unique answers, and they all come from an open-ended question, which is great, but it also makes it hard to kind of get some market insights from that. And so the other type of data, so we've got qualitative data, which is what we're talking about there, open-ended questions, qualitative interviewing, finding out insights from our target audience. The other type is quantitative data. If you say, I don't really care how people feel, just break it down for me, in cold, hard facts. So quantitative data is usually going to deal with numbers or things that can be measured, or, the word is quantified. If candy brands, how much that brand generates in revenue each year is a quantifiable thing. I can rank them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? That is a quantifiable number. That is a numerical data point. But if I were to be asking questions about, I want to know why M&M's is number one. How does M&M's make you feel? What is it about that brand that really makes it sell, right? That's going to be more of an open-ended question. So quantitative data is going to deal more with numbers and things that can be measured. So how do I gather that information? Well, usually you would want to use closed-ended questions to do that. So an example would be, instead of asking you, what do you like best about this class, and letting you just answer anything, I might give you 4 options and say, what do you like best about this class? The meeting time, the location, the instructor, or the content, right? Now I have limited your response options to 4, which means that you've got to pick one of those. And that means that I'm going to be able to compare and contrast that data and know that, okay, the most important thing that people like about this class is the instructor. Probably that's not your answer. Anyway, that's a closed-ended question. Or if I really want to get in a situation of ranking, I could say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you like this class? Well, now you have to pick a number, and I'll be able to tell, that 80% of people, ranked this class or are enjoying this class at a 7 or higher, or something like that. Those are numerical, quantifiable data points. And so, typically on a survey, you'll use a lot more of that. But qualitative data has its place too. It can help us really understand, like I said, some of those market insights for our customers. That's step 3, is collecting the info. Step 4 then of that process, of course, is you have to analyze and develop your findings. So am I going to present this, or am I going to try to put this in a spreadsheet? Am I going to try to do a pie graph? Am I going to do a chart of some kind? What is the best visual interpretation, or what is the best comparison between 2 data points analysis? What can I learn from this survey data that I have taken? And then, of course, the last phase of that would be to then take action. If I've done all of that survey data, if I figured out exactly what I wanted to know, a very limited thing, exactly what I wanted to know from an audience, from my customers, from my target audience, and then developed if it's something I want to know, if I want to know why they feel a certain way, well, then I'm going to use qualitative data, and I'm going to maybe try for a focus group, or I'm going to do an in-person survey or a telephone survey or whatever, but I'm going to use open-ended questions. If I'm trying to find out just cold, hard facts, then whatever method of collection I use for that data, I'm going to use closed-ended questions, or maybe a ranking system, etc. So I find out exactly what I want to know. I find out I determine what type of plan or what type of data collection would get me that information best. And then I execute that plan to the best of my abilities. And then I analyze that data, figure out what I learned from my survey, and then take action. So what are the recommendations that I can take back to my boss or my supervisor or my marketing manager, or my CEO? Based on the data that I've collected, or then I can implement those recommendations and evaluate the results to see if if I did some survey results that said, hey, people really care about customer service, and so my recommendation is that we change all of our marketing to really focus on and highlight our customer service. Well, then we would implement that across all our platforms, and then let's chart our sales, or let's chart our new customers, or let's chart customers lost over the next 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, and evaluate whether switching all of our messaging to that message actually worked. And so if it did, then we made a successful business decision or a successful branding decision based on our market research. If it didn't work, then maybe we need to go back and retool some of our research, because what our customers were telling us in research didn't bear out when we actually went live with implementing those changes. And so then we'd have to go back and do some more research and retool our survey, do another round of market research, etc. But the point of this lesson is that marketing research is a critical piece to all of the other components that we're talking about. We're trying to understand our audience in a deep and meaningful way so that that can guide our branding decisions, our promotional decisions, our product decisions, and so on and so forth. So that's this week's lesson. You've got a quiz and a couple other things in this chapter or in this module to check out, and then you'll be able to move on to the next thing. You guys have a great day. Thanks for listening.